Hello everypony, I am Critical Thought and welcome to my review of Stranger Than Fanfiction. This time we have two of my favorite writers at the helm of this episode. Josh Haber, the man who brought us Bloom and Gloom, The Cutie Remark, and The Crystalling, some of the best episodes of the past two seasons, and Mike Vogel, writer of A Hearthwarming Tale and Spice Up Your Life from Season 6. With these two extremely talented people working together, I'm sure this episode is going to be amazing. Why would it be anything other than an instant hit? Especially since they got the great comedian Patton Oswalt guest starring in this episode. Nope, I have no doubts whatsoever about this episode. How will Josh Haber and Mike Vogel spin gold together? Let's find out. We start this episode off in the middle of a daring do adventure, which turns out to actually be Twilight reading to Rainbow Dash from one of A.K. Yearling's many daring do books. Dashie is in the process of packing to go to a daring do convention, which bums Twi out since she wanted to go herself, but was ordered by Princess Celestia to go to Griffinstone on some royal business. This entire scene hits home for me a lot since I've been on both sides of this interaction in regards to brony conventions. I've both bummed others out with my excitement for MLP cons as well as suffered through the anguish of watching everyone else get to enjoy conventions I can't go to for one reason or another. In fact, something tells me that brony conventions were directly responsible for the writers coming up with this entire plot. There's also a pretty great callback to Daring Don't that helps clue first-time watchers into the fact that A.K. Yearling is secretly daring do herself, and that her books are actually non-fiction retellings of her various adventures, rather than completely fictional stories with a fictional character. Theme. Once at the convention, Rainbow is in fan heaven among all the Daring Do memorabilia and decor. Just then, she stumbles across a Daring Do fan with as much knowledge and passion as her, named Quibblepants, guest voiced by the talented Patton Oswalt, who is known for such movies as Magnolia, Starsky and Hutch 2004, and Ratatouille. He has also had recurring roles on Seinfeld, The King of Queens, and Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. After a shared moment of nerding out, Dashie and Quibble decide to hang out at the con together, taking part in its festivities. For anyone that doesn't get why this is hilarious, you're better off not knowing. Trust me. Later, when Rainbow and Quibble are taking a break from the convention and getting some drinks, Dashie notes that they haven't done anything related to the new trilogy of Daring Do books yet, which triggers Quibble and he goes into a rant about how he hates the new trilogy and how he's only a fan of the original trilogy. One of his reasons as to why is that he thinks the action set pieces in the newer books are impossible. Of course, Rainbow is armed with the secret knowledge that every Daring Do book actually happened, so this angers her that Quibble finds the new books to be unbelievable in their plot, and she almost lets it slip that she knows Daring Do personally. I love this argument scene here, mostly because I know other fans, particularly those of Star Wars and Pokemon, but also some bronies as well, who have this kind of mentality. Oh, the original is so much better than the newer stuff. I refuse to acknowledge the artistic merits of anything new that this franchise does, because it's not the original. Look, nostalgia is cool and all, and maybe you love that stuff the most because you grew up with it. Fine, that's totally understandable. But to turn a blind eye and set yourself up to hate anything new your beloved franchise does is naive and foolish. Let's look at MLP for example. Pick an episode. Any episode from Seasons 1 and 2, and compare them to an episode from Seasons 5 or 6. Sure, maybe you prefer some of the Season 1 or 2 plots to the ones in Seasons 5 and 6, but look at the animation in the newer episodes. Look at the variety of the background characters. Look at the music. Even if you prefer those older stories, to deny all the improvements this show has made to all of those areas I just mentioned, simply because it's not Season 1 or 2, is stupid. You don't have to like every episode that's new. Celestia knows I don't. But it's important to find whatever good you can in every era of a brand you love and recognize when it achieves something noteworthy. I grew up with the Star Wars prequels, which every fan says were the worst, yet I like them more than the originals. However, I can certainly watch the originals and point out some great feats of cinema, just as I can go back through the prequels that I love and point out all the stupid things. At the end of every video, when I say never stop thinking critically, this is what I mean. I don't mean pick everything apart and be unforgiving with it, nor do I mean to blindly praise something without examining its faults. I ask my audience to see the world like a critic and see the good and bad of not just every episode, but every situation they face in life. That's how you never stop thinking critically. Okay, long, somewhat off-topic rant over. Let's move on with the episode. Dashi then heads to A.K. Yearling's hotel where she demands to see her, so that she can convince Quibblepants that the newer books in the Daring Do series were actually realistic. Suddenly, A.K. shows up and pulls Dashi into her room. Dashi tries getting her to come talk to Quibble, but Daring Do has bigger problems. The evil mercenary and thief Cabaleron is in the area, looking for an ancient key that Daring Do is hiding from him. If he gets his hands on it, he'll sell it to the highest bidder, and a lost temple, which the key opens, could have its treasure stolen. Daring says that coming to the convention was a way to hide the key from Cabaleron, due to there being lots of security, and even if she got into trouble, she could drop her disguise as A.K. Yearling and blend in with the rest of the Daring Do cosplayers. Daring assigns Rainbow to patrol the show floor, keeping an eye out for Cabaleron. While patrolling, Dashi bumps into Quibble again, who immediately starts to antagonize her about the new trilogy of Daring Do books. Suddenly, Dashi spots Cabaleron and follows him, with a confused and annoyed Quibble following suit. Dashi loses Cabaleron and his goons out a back exit of the convention, when suddenly the thugs pop up behind Quibble and stuff him and Dashi into bags. Later, when they're freed from the bags, they're in the middle of a jungle and Cabaleron approaches them, connecting the dots that they must work for Daring Do since they knew about his plan to steal the ancient key. How he knows this is beyond me, unless his goons were eavesdropping on Rainbow when she tried to explain that to Quibble, but whatever. It's a plot hole that doesn't ruin the entire episode, so I'll give it a pass. Despite being kidnapped by the real Cabaleron, Quibble still doesn't believe Rainbow Dash about the newer books being realistic, and instead thinks their entire predicament is part of a fake Daring Do experience that Dashi had purchased to prove him wrong. I gotta point out how Quibble is proving to be a fantastic character. First, he points out Cabaleron's cliché plan, then he acknowledges the incompetence of his guards, and later, while he's walking through the jungle with Dashi trying to find his way back to the hotel and falls through a rickety wooden bridge, he spouts a hilarious one-liner before the entire bridge breaks and sends him plummeting down. This guy is like the Deadpool of MLP, just minus the healing factor, the vulgarity, and the cool costume. Patton Oswalt really does bring this character to life. Also, this scene.
How's that for not possible?
That was awesome! I thought we, and then you began the flying. Well, and I was like, "Where are you going?" And then you swerved, and I was on the water and the rocks. Wow!
Yeah, if you read that in a book, you might even think it was unrealistic.
There's nothing really astonishing or noteworthy about this sequence. I just like it a lot for some reason. It must just be Patton Oswalt's performance again. It really is entertaining to watch. Although, the plot convenience immediately afterwards is bad. Really bad. Not only does Cabaleron and his crew just appear Deus Ex Machina style, but Dashi and Quibble just so happen to stumble upon the lost temple that Cabaleron had been searching for. I could see this kind of amateurish mistake coming from someone like the Fox Bros, but from Josh Haber and Mike Vogel, two of the most, if not the most talented writers currently staffed to work on this show, that's unforgivable. Although I feel like it's not 100% their fault. Part of me thinks the 22-minute formula is the real roadblock to this episode's plot. Even after being told the truth by Dashi, even after nearly dying in a waterfall, even after being captured by Cabaleron not once, but twice, Quibble still refuses to believe his situation, and by proxy, Dashi's claim about the newer Daring Do books is real, and instead thinks that they are on an unofficial Daring Do experience, unconcerned with guest safety. Even though Quibble points out the obvious plot convenience here, it's gonna take more than a nudge and a wink to get me to forgive how they found this temple by chance. It's only after a horrific monster pops up behind Quibble and he is rescued by the one and only Daring Do that he finally realizes that the situation is all real, though he stands by his opinion about the new trilogy of books. After a pretty great scene with Quibble water skiing to escape the temple with the help of Daring and Rainbow, Quibble realizes why he and Rainbow Dash disagree about Daring Do. He is more into the Daring Do of the original trilogy because she solved more puzzles and thought through her problems more. And Dashie admires the Daring Do of the new trilogy that is brave and will always come out on top no matter the odds. It's here that we get the moral for this episode, that it's okay to disagree about things as long as you can respect other people's opinions and understand why they have them. This is kind of an offshoot from the moral of Spice Up Your Life, which doesn't surprise me since Mike Vogel wrote that episode as well. I'll say the same thing about this episode that I said about that one. This is a great moral, but is likely easier for kids to implement into their lives than adults, due to adults being concerned with things like sex, religion, and politics. We close out the episode with Dashie and Quibble headed off into the sunset, discussing the next Daring Do book. So, what did I think of Stranger Than Fanfiction? This episode held so much promise at the beginning and was really exciting while it took place at the convention. But once the Daring Do adventure was shifted into the spotlight, I kinda tuned out. I still think that with some clever storytelling, the moral could have been taught without going on the adventure and keeping things confined to the much more interesting convention setting. In fact, the moral at the end has very little to do with the adventure. After being rescued, Quibble just kinda has an out-of-place epiphany about why Dashie likes the newer books. The only relevance the adventure has to the moral is the one scene where Quibble unlocks a complicated lock without much effort, and the other scene where he solves a puzzle faster than Daring Do. But this only helps Dashie understand Quibble, not the other way around. I feel like since the writers have went all in with this idea that AK Yearling and Daring Do are one and the same pony, they now feel like they can't explore stories about her without shoehorning her into them with some cliché Indiana Jones-style adventure plot. The only thing that kept me entertained throughout the adventure portion was Quibble's little quips about how stupid everything happening to him was. It's not that I think Daring Do's adventures are bad, far from it. I just preferred them when they were in book form. That twist in Daring Don't was enough to keep the hype train rolling throughout that episode, but here, knowing what we know about her, everything just seems kinda contrived. Because this episode loses all of its steam by the start of the second act, and due to its glaring plot holes and conveniences, I can't justify anything higher than a watch it once rating. The moral in the solid first act, as well as the character of Quibble Pants, managed to save it from a worse rating, so I feel pretty confident about recommending this episode at least once. As always, I am Critical Thought, and I will see you all in my next video. Never stop thinking critically.
Oh,